Today, I have something really unusual and amazing and special for you guys, which is, you know how I am a trance channel and I bring you messages from the angels, and the angels frequently talk about what's on the horizon, what's coming. They give us a lot of specifics, but not a lot of dates. As a matter of fact, the ongoing joke is when you ask an angel, when is something going to happen? They say soon. So today, I have the most exciting collaboration I can think of, which is I have brought Pam Gregory here to be with me today to share. And she and I are going to be talking through. I'm going to bring in some of the specifics and she's going to bring in some of the dates, and we're just going to see what kind of magic happens. And I am so thrilled to have you here, Pam. And you need no introduction. Those of you who are somehow have not yet heard of Pam Gregory, she is one of the most loved astrologers on YouTube and I think in the world. So she does fabulous regular updates. She focuses a lot on the phases of the moon and talking through how those kind of govern what's going to be coming. And I've been a long time watcher of her show, and I'm delighted to have her here with us. So thank you so much for joining me, Pam.
Yeah, I'm really thrilled and I'm really delighted. So thank you so much for the opportunity. And I have been following your videos for about the last year and really love them and how specific they're becoming.
Yeah.
You know, the angels are becoming very specific. And in this massive time of transformation, that is so helpful for people. You know,
Yeah.
such great guidance. And you put the flesh on the bones of what I'm seeing astrologically, because I don't see the events. You know, I'm not psychic in that way. I'm kind of translating a language.
Yes,
So
yeah, absolutely. And which is phenomenal because that's the piece I can't get. So, which is it's just I'm so excited for this conversation. And you're right. I love the fact, like you're right, that there is the eternal optimism. Like I know you are super, super focused on where we're headed, on what's coming, and you always return to that. Like what is the beautiful thing on the horizon, and the angels are there too. Like everything is always like the reason they share this information with us, it's never ever fear-based. It's never meant to and as a matter of fact, that would be counterproductive because the whole point is we're supposed to stay in love, we're supposed to be in love. And they're trying to, the only reason they really want to tell us is it's sort of like if you're caught flat-footed, then it's easy for humans to go into fear. So they want to give us a sense of like, hey, when this thing happens, you will already be anticipating it. You'll know about it. They don't want us to dwell on it, right? They don't want us to be stuck in a hidey hole, saving up all of our supplies for ourselves. They want us to be living our life, investing in our life. But when these things happen, we're supposed to say, okay, I know that this is of service. I know that we're going to move through this. I know it's taking us somewhere amazing. Yeah.
absolutely, yeah, totally with you. And I think your work, Anne, but also the astrology is very reassuring because even when we're in times of challenge, and we are in times of challenge because, you know, the old is collapsing, the astrology can see that.
Yeah.
You know, I would be surprised if we weren't in times of challenge and collapse of the old order. I would be surprised.
Wow.
And so even when these challenging things happen, I think, yeah, right on time, you know, right on time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So astrology is very reassuring in that way.
I love it. So you said recently, and I feel this. I have been feeling like we are right. Like I have been feeling like we are right at the brink of things. Like we've been in the poly crisis where it's getting hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter, but it feels like we're right at the point where things are gonna flip into like supercharged period. Do you feel that too?
I do. I do, absolutely. And as we're recording this now on the 15th, we are
Yeah.
at one of the peak probabilities because astrology is a language of mathematical probability,
Yeah.
not certainty, probability. So we are in a very, very big peak at the moment of kind of electromagnetic sizzle of probability because this shift is going to be, I think, partly electromagnetic for reasons I can go on to explain. It's an electromagnetic shift because we are electromagnetic beings.
Yes.
So the potential for radical shift this week is very high. Now doesn't mean it's the only opportunity. I can identify several coming down the road, but this is one of them. This is one of the
Okay.
first real biggies. And
Oof.
it could be seismic, it could be power cuts, it could be cyber attacks, it could be internet outages, you know, your 3 days of darkness.
Yes.
Absolutely the symbolism that we have right now and ongoing for the next few months. But this is
Wow.
was one of the peaks. And I
Ongoing for the next few months. Okay. So yeah, so this is, it's really, really interesting because so I know like a big highlight in terms of some of the things that the angels have said. And I started getting these messages about like back in 2020, the angels came through and they introduced me to another angel. And this angel came in and it was still an angel, had a different appearance. And they said, this angel is going to now start sharing some information with you. And so then the next time I channeled, he came through and immediately he started out, he's like, you have to share this information. This will save lives. You have to share this information. And of course, the last thing I wanted to do was share this information. I'm like, oh, I don't want to talk about this stuff. But because a lot of it was the events that are coming. But I in that period, in that period from mid-July of 2020 to the end of the year, I got a ton of information about what's coming. And then since then, they've just put, as you say, flesh on the bone. They've been adding more details and more details and more details. But one of the things they talked about in that period is they talked about a president, which sounded a whole lot like, to me, it sounds like the reason I think it's Trump is because they said a president and they said a leader. They didn't say president, they said a leader would die in a night. And it was as if he would be like on the way to the hospital kind of thing. So it doesn't sound like it was like not shot in a like what just happened with Trump. But it would be like he died like on the way to the hospital, would die in a night, and his followers, they called them disenfranchised followers. And this is well before the whole election thing happened and the steal your vote thing happened. So the fact that they named them disenfranchised followers really made me think of Trump, because his followers specifically had the entire conversation around feeling the vote was stolen thing. So in any case, they said that they would then rise up and it would create this chaos. And then this was in a sequence of messages that was talking about the dissolution of the United States, that they said back then, before the whole invasion of Russia and everything like that, they said that the US would lose its political hegemony and would eventually split. So which then has since we've seen that with the loss of the value of the dollar because of the sanctions that happened and that, well, anyways, long story. So what, from an astrology perspective, I mean, I know that's like an out to predict, that's an out there prediction from the angels in terms of what they're saying, the timeline shift and all this kind of stuff. Do you think that Trump, that maybe this was destined for this time period and Trump escaped it? Or do you think that there may be yet, and maybe they're talking about some other leader? What's your perspective on that?
Just to say, sort of leaving Trump to one side, and then I'll come back to him in just one second. All the other things the angels have said, I am seeing astrologically, and I've been talking about for the last 2 years. In fact, Pluto, the Pluto return for the US, that all fits with what the angels have shared with you. Because if I look at the chart for the United States, and it sounds crazy to say a country's got a chart, and I thought it was crazy too, but believe me, they do. When they So it was 1776, 4th of July for the US, and that sets up a new legal constitution for your country.
Okay.
And astrologers kind of test that to destruction with transits to make sure it works, it's sensitive.
Okay.
So for the very first time, Pluto is coming, which is the planet of transformation, is coming back to its 1776 place.
Okay.
Now, in that chart for the US, it's in the house of the economy, finances, values, because it's in Capricorn, it's the constitution, it's politics, it's the way the entire country is set up in terms of the states that make up the US. Because that was, what happened in 1776. So I've been saying for the last couple of years, I think there will be radical changes to the economy and finances of the US. What are the values for who are you going forwards as a country? Politically, it will change massively, as will most of the world, frankly, because we're moving from a top-down system to a much more grassroots-up system. Although it won't look like that for the next few months, it'll look the other way. But don't panic; it's that's going to be temporary. And I do think states will break away.
Yeah.
I do think, and I've been saying that, very frequently, Texas, maybe some other states, possibly Florida. So I think all of those things are going to happen.
Yeah.
With regard to Trump, yes, I did mention in the last update that Saturn, that Mars Uranus Algol conjunction was right on his midheaven. Now, this was about something sudden, out of the blue, shocking. Mars, god of war in myth, is to do with guns, violence, attacks. Algol is about people losing their heads. That can be about either people going crazy or leaders losing their power or literally somebody dying through losing their heads, going back to the original myth of Algol. So the shooter was clearly aiming for his head. So that was, that was, even I thought, gosh, that's pretty spot on for,
It's pretty literal. Yeah.
between the 14th and the 16th of July. So, but looking down the track, it is extremely, because loads of people asking me about, the US election and what's going to happen, blah, 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 blah. And I've stayed pretty quiet about it because I didn't want to sort of fuel the polarization, but it looks very volatile, lots of twists and turns
Yes.
going into the election, lots of twists and turns. I think there are some very big and I'm being completely objective about the astrology because I actually have no political affiliation whatsoever. My focus is let's create a higher consciousness to get,
Yes.
beyond all of this stuff that doesn't work and doesn't help the majority of people. So I think President Biden's health is going to be quite significantly challenged. Probably doesn't need an astrologer to tell you that.
Yeah.
There's some cognitive issues, and that's clear in his astrology. Depending on what happens with the Republican and the Democratic conventions, this week and next month, we will see what shakes out, because I think that will bring about quite a different picture moving out of the Democratic convention. Trump at the moment has the best astrology of the available candidates. He has
Yeah.
the strongest astrology, but, and it's quite a big but, very, very close to the election. And I'm not even sure there will be an election.
Yeah. I feel the same way. Yes. Okay.
Lots of twists and turns. So the
Yeah.
election may not happen, or the election may be delayed. If it does happen, Trump currently, of the two main candidates, has the best astrology. But very soon after the election, he has quite a challenging, it's solar arc Neptune from memory, conjunct his moon, opposing his sun. So that's like an energy wipeout of some kind
Oh, wow.
in some way. So whether he's just, very tired, whether he's not very well, whether, he hands power to a younger person, Aquarian energy, I need to look at it in much more detail. Now, I haven't
Yeah.
ever publicly talked about it this specifically, but there's something that takes him from very successful astrology to a stepping back, an energy pullback in some way.
Okay.
So, but I need to look, but there are going to be lots and twists and turns before we
Yeah,
get
to get there. Yeah, I believe somewhere in there that like a woman may step forward who is not, but she can't carry like whatever. It's almost like the country, and the angel said that it wouldn't be a civil war, which is like, yay, thank you for that. That it would be just like almost like people just stop participating. It'd be sort of like Texas being like, yep, sorry, we're just going to do it ourselves. We're not going to do what you want us to do anymore. And so
yeah.
just a gradual, and people moving. They said there'd be a lot of people, not just in our, and not in the UN, not only in the United States, people relocating to where they want to be, but globally, because as you know, everything is energy. So there's an energy that comes up and it expresses here and here and here and here. And but yeah, people moving, large quantities of people moving. So yeah, so interesting. So, and I was, you said earlier that it was in the, and I didn't know this, that it was in the house of the US economy. That, so when the angels first started coming through, if you look back at the very, very beginning of my channel, when I first started sharing these messages, which I, as I mentioned, was very hard for me to do back then. So, but the first ones were about the US economy. That's the first things they started talking about. And they talked about the specific things they said was bank failures, that there would be that the banks would close. And so the message was have some cash on hand was the suggestion. Not that I am in any way a financial advisor, and I do not give financial advice, but it's not a bad idea to have a little extra cash on hand. To me, it makes me think of like if I was to look out into the world and see other countries that are having banking crises, like Lebanon, for example. What they did is they said they just restricted how much people could take out. And so, but if people needed, say, for example, you get a rock through your window and you need to replace a window and you're on an enforced budget from the bank, you want to have a little cash on hand to cover things that might happen. So that's kind of the suggestion that came from this whole series. But they said, yeah, it would be banking, secrets that would come out, banking, all kind, and then there would be a lot of corporate, there would be debt. It was a debt issue. And it was like they couldn't cover their marks. And they said it would happen sort of at peak greed is when it felt like things were, when it was cotton, got the frothiest of the frothy. Then at that point, it's like the rug gets pulled out and everything kind of falls.
Yeah,
So,
and Pluto's about debt. So going back to the US
oh,
Pluto return, Pluto is debt, Pluto is default, Pluto is deficits, Pluto is taxes. Because
okay.
you were born as a country having abandoned Britain because of England, because of King George's onerous taxes.
Oh,
So,
yeah. Yeah.
isn't it interesting? We're back
Oh
to
my
repeating
gosh.
that cycle for the
Yeah.
very first time.
Yeah.
So, yes, but because all the banks are connected globally, it won't just be the US.
Yes.
If I look at the chart for the euro is hitting some very significant kind of, it's almost dissolution energy over the
Yeah.
next couple of years. Now,
Wow.
that may be because they attempt to bring in CBDCs and there will be attempts at centralization, but the Aquarian energy that we're moving towards is decentralized. It's like mushrooms, mycelium,
Wow. Yes.
collective,
Yeah.
tree roots. It's grassroots up, it's communities, it's people taking back their sovereignty and their power and saying, do you know what? This system isn't really working for us. We are
Yes.
going to self-rule. We're stepping
Wow.
into our sovereignty. And that's what's so thrilling. And it will be a spiritual authority.
Yeah.
So
Wow. Yep.
not just political. So that and things have to get to a kind of boiling point to go over that tipping point, I think, for people to say, we need a whole new system.
Absolutely. There was a whole message they gave us about the energy of exhaustion. They said that it can't be a thing where things are just taken down to their knees, because if there's anything left, the powers that be will just gather all the resources that are left and rebuild themselves. And that's how you see things. It's sort of like, during the 2008 banking crisis, who got paid first? It was the people in power. And so they said, no, it has to be flattened, the energy of exhaustion taken down to nothing, because the whole point is to unwind all the structures that are keeping us if there's things in our society and our way of living that people, I think, we just take for granted, like the fact that people live, that they work 9 to 5 jobs that they don't love, and that they do, what I mean? It's sort of things that there's structures that we accept because this is what we think life is. And they're saying, nope, we get to unwind all of that and then bring it down to, and then this new state of consciousness comes in and we find freedom. The goal is to find freedom. Yeah.
So interesting that they're saying that, because Pluto has just for the second time moved into Aquarius this January. It backtracks a little while, September to November, and then it fully moves into Aquarius again for 20 years in November until 2044.
Okay.
The last time Pluto was in Aquarius, and I talk about this a lot in my videos, the last time, that was when 14th of July 1789, because there was such massive inequality in France with Louis XVI and his golden palace, and the peasants couldn't afford to buy bread. They stormed the Bastille. They took down the monarchy. The monarch was executed. France then abandoned monarchy and became a republic. And from that point on, over the coming years, there was a massive socioeconomic political shift from elitism, inequality, top down, to give much more legal rights, political rights to the ordinary people. They were equal before the law, they could buy land, they could start businesses, small enterprises. And for the very first time, there was the beginning of a middle class, which spread
Wow.
across Europe for the very first time anyway. And within a month of taking down the monarchy, there was a document called The Rights of Man, a
Okay.
Declaration for the Rights of Man, not women at that point, that came later, but Declaration for the Rights of Man.
Progress is
Within
progress, right?
And so that became the foundational document for democracy across Europe,
Okay.
giving rights for the very first time to ordinary people. So if we take that as our template,
Yeah.
that was the last time Pluto was in Aquarius, that's going to repeat. And it doesn't come easy. The powers that be aren't going to just hand it to us on a plate. We've got to stand, not with placards and shouty and violent, stand peacefully, lovingly in
Yeah.
our spiritual authority and our sovereignty, and
Yeah.
say, no,
Yeah.
we are going to create a more loving world than this.
Yeah. Yeah. I
The
love
best for
that.
everybody.
Yeah. And I think, to go back to the economy thing, one other thing the angel said, which really surprised me, because I have not I have not loved the idea of digital currency because there's a lot of people who have worry about the amount of control that it gives the government over your privacy and all. I mean, that's a huge issue. So and it just hasn't been, and I've also felt like crypto has been kind of, it just hasn't been a thing I wanted to go into at all. And out of the blue, the other day, the angel said there will be a new currency coming that is, they said it would be the one that was agreed upon by everybody. And they made it sound like there would be regulations, like it would be like a thing, like you're like somehow they would be enforcing this. But I'm sure there's always levels of choice, right? And but they told me specifically that I should do it. They said when it comes, move into this currency as quickly as you can. And the reason they said it is they said that it would level the playing field globally. They said that it would take, like right now, if I'm a healer, if I'm offering my services right now, I'm offering them in US dollars. It makes it very expensive for some other countries for them to participate. And there's really no way for me to make that work. It's a challenge. My dollar is worth like 15 of theirs. You know what I mean? How do you balance that out? And this currency fixes that. So they said if I was to go into this currency, then all of a sudden I could help people from anywhere and it would no longer be an issue. So that was the reason they told me. And I know for it's different choices, everybody has a different calculus to make, but I thought that was interesting. So I don't know, do you have a sense of when a currency like that? I don't know if it would be, I mean, to me, it's like, is it going to be BRICS? Is it going to be like, who's going to have this currency that everyone, and is it even soon? Maybe this happens after everything falls.
I think it's pretty imminent. I mean, they're making big efforts, obviously, in Europe and in the US, but strongly in Europe, to bring in CBDCs, but they are very much government controlled.
Yeah.
And Uranus, which is the planet of digitization and the internet, etc., is in Taurus. Taurus is money. Taurus is
Okay.
currency. It is only going to be in that sign until 2026, March 2026, and then it moves out of that sign.
Okay.
It's starting to move out of that sign next year. In fact, for the second half of 2025, it's already in the next sign in Gemini.
Okay.
So between over the next 12 months and certainly before March 2026, we are going to see some kind of new digital currency. But my feeling is it could be precious metal backed,
Okay.
something like that, because
Mm-hmm.
Taurus is to gold and precious metals as well. So it won't just be a centralized government diktat. It will not
Okay.
be that. It will
Okay.
be much more creative and inventive than that. And I think there could even be microcurrencies, localized
Oh,
currency.
interesting. Okay. All right. Yeah, that's been interesting to see these different, as the US dollar has gotten, people are starting to move away from using the US dollar. There's all these, like I heard recently that there was like a collaboration of a bunch of different countries in Asia that were all working together to kind of have their own microcurrency, their own trading network amongst themselves and their own currency among themselves, which that definitely fits what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah, fascinating. So, and because I just wanted to go back to that because that was another very specific thing they mentioned to look out for, and that there is a reason. Like even though, like I said, I am totally understand the fear about what it might mean if the government has more and more and more control. And I think I heard you say recently in one of your updates that it would be a period where we might go through increasing control and then into less control down the way.
Yeah,
So,
the rest of this year, it's going to look like we're going backwards to more centralized
okay,
control. And that's real. And I can see that very clearly in the astrology. So
okay.
don't panic, guys, because I can see it. If I couldn't see it, I'd be panicking as well, but I can't see it. It's like, because it's the absolute last gasp of the old order. Pluto moves out of Capricorn finally for about the next 230 years on the 19th of November. So, very last time in our lifetimes. And therefore, because it's kind of the last gasp, it's a crisis degree around governments, corporations, institutions that have held power over us.
Okay.
So, lots of hissy fits, lots of kicking teddies out of prams, lots of more attempted control from the top, because
Okay.
they know it's kind of the last gasp. So we have to understand that and stand even more strongly spiritually in our sovereignty, beaming out love, beaming out joy, beaming out compassion. Don't go into the fight, I would say, because if you go into the fight by the law of physics, you are energizing what you
Yes.
absolutely don't want more of. You're giving, and
Yes.
you're giving life support to the corpse, as it were. We have to create. I always say I'm with Buckminster Fuller, who had the whole idea. We create something at a higher level of consciousness, and
Hmm.
then everybody says, "Gosh, I think I want to be there rather than here. That looks
Yes.
beautiful over there." So that's what I'm trying to do with my work and my 15-minute meditations on a Sunday.
Yes.
Get into that feeling of joy and love and peace and compassion and abundance. And people are having these incredible visions of, tall galactic beings joining us and the angels joining us and spinning light across the earth that gets bigger and brighter every week. I mean, I've just been blown away. I mean, people are in tears. And I thought, gosh, it's such a simple idea. And it's really bringing everybody together. And of course, the group energy is magnified when you do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And that
And
absolutely is supported too by what I have received. But the angels have told us that after, and they've said specifically that we will, that galactic beings will come, and they said they'll come after we achieve world peace, which sounds really hard, but it's not. We're actually supposed to get there after and we should talk about this, the flash of light, the 3 days of darkness, all of this. But they said once we get to a space where it's almost like the flash of light is my understanding, it's like a reset, and it kind of like it stills. There's all this chaos, and then it just flattens it. And at that point, humanity realizes we need each other, and at the same time, we have this new elevated consciousness, and it becomes easy for us to step into peace because we develop telepathy, we develop the ability to feel each other's feelings. And how can you go? Think about a negotiation when when one country is talking to another. If they can feel each other's feelings, fairness evolves, right? Compassion evolves. So peace makes sense in that context. But they said once that happens, then it is then safe. And the ultimate goal is for us to become galactic citizens and stewards of the earth. So that's, and they said once we reach this higher state of consciousness, then yes, people will be able to see, not always, I don't think, or maybe not everyone, but they talked about people will be able to see angels, which I love that idea of people who maybe like someone who is not at all on the spiritual path, and then they just see an angel. Like that's going to be a paradigm shifter.
I mean, we are big time into paradigm shifts. Yeah, absolutely. So exciting.
Yeah. So let
Yeah.
me ask you about that, about the flash. Okay. So one of the biggest and most exciting things that the angels talk about is this flash of light. And they have been very clear. They say this is a flashlight. They said it is not meant to be, it's not a harmful flash of light. It's not like it's going to radiate people. It is a solar energy. So it could come from any star. It could be our sun. It could be, some people think it might be Betelgeuse, but it is an energy that comes. They said that you cannot miss it, that it will be powerful enough that it soaks into the planet. So you could be deep in a basement and it will still find you. And they said that it brings us up. So if you can imagine it, it's like it brings us up the stairway up to a door, right? And this that brings our frequency up. But we always have choice. And they said that all we have to do to move through the doorway is to be open, to be receptive, which is why when the flash of light comes, we need to be, they don't want us to be surprised by it. They want us to be in a state of love and a state of openness. They say specifically, pull the shades, go internal, be with yourself, be open and be in love. And then boom, there you go. You move. And then there's the last series of messages have been about, they've been giving us very specific instructions about what will happen and what we will feel when we go through the doorway. The only way people cannot is if the way they turn their back to the light is by holding on to what was. And so that's if this happens and people are running around trying to turn the lights back on and they're freaking out and you know what I mean, and saying, wait a minute, I don't want change. I want to keep my life the way it was. That is turning their back to the light. And that's a choice, right? But just so people know, no one's going to get left behind who wants to be on this party bus. They all get to come. But
Yeah.
what do you
Yeah.
what do you think in terms of the when do you think this might happen given the astrology? You have a sense of it?
Yes, I do. And gosh, there's so much I want to say here. So you'll have to tell me to, cut off if I'm talking too much, Anne. But
There's no cutting off, Pam Gregory.
thank
We'll
you.
not cut you off.
So if we look at the really big picture, many people have been talking about the golden age arriving in 2032, because we've got a very big Saturn-Uranus conjunction then. In
Oh,
fact, a good local friend of mine, Diana Cooper, has written, I think, 34 books on the golden age. And she's always said it's going to be 2032. But I spoke to her yesterday and she did say we are all ahead of schedule. Which is
ooh,
great news by a
wow.
significant margin, I think. I think she was talking about 25% more, maybe. So that's great news because we're rocking it. We're really doing well.
Wow.
Pulling it back, so I'm going from far out to close to. There's a very, very important astrological initiation, February 2026. Saturn and Neptune come together. Now, Neptune has a 165-year orbit, Saturn has a 29.5-year orbit. So they come together round about every 36 years, but not at 0 degrees of Aries, the
Okay.
very first degree
Oh,
of the zodiac. And I call that the creator degree.
okay.
So that is very significant for a whole new pioneering vision, spiritual vision for humanity, spiritual leadership, a whole new birthing for humanity.
Yeah.
That's February 2026. If I pull it back a bit tighter, because the Earth is going through an area of space called the photon belt, which it only does every 12,000 years, give or take 500. So this
Okay.
is quite a rare thing. So it's
Yeah.
going through, just fairly recently start to go through the photon belt. This is very high frequency, vibrating energy, like diamond sparkly light, that is one of the key ingredients for our evolution. So we're going
Okay.
through that right now. But even tighter in, there are continuous 11-year sunspot cycles happening. And at the moment, we are in solar cycle 25.
Okay.
Now, those 11-year sunspot cycles are expected to peak at a certain time. So that was expected to peak with solar activity next year, because the sun has been so active, they have pulled the peak back into this year. But it's
Oh,
really going to be from now to, I reckon, about the astrophysicists are saying about the middle of next year.
okay.
Okay, so then you get this heightened solar activity overlapping with this much bigger 12,000-year cycle.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Okay, so 2032, that's a big threshold. February 2026, very big threshold. I actually think the greatest potential for some kind of solar event
Yeah.
is in the next 12 months.
Wow.
I think it could be that soon. And looking again, if I pull it back in
Yeah.
even tighter, this week is very electrical because you're talking about electromagnetic energy.
Yeah.
You've also got something, we've got a very powerful full moon on the 19th of August, square to Uranus.
Okay.
Uranus is electrical, it's electromagnetic, it's the galactics, it's a new state of being, etc. And then you've got another very powerful full moon on the 15th of November, conjunct Uranus.
Oh, wow.
So I think this year could be very sparky. Now, from now on until February 2026, you also have all of the outer planets changing sign. Now,
Okay.
that is extremely unusual in such a short period of time that they're all changing sign, because you've got 248-year orbit, 165-year orbit, a 29-year orbit, but so to get more happening changing sign in that very
Yeah.
short period from now till Feb 2026, I've had to go back about 300 years to find that before.
Okay.
But if I add in the dwarf planets as well, I haven't been able to find a time in history when we have so many planetary endings and beginnings.
Right.
Ending, beginning, ending, beginning. So ending of an old order and beginning of a new is very concentrated from now till February 2026, super concentrated.
Okay.
And over the next, sorry, this is such a lot, over the next 2 years as well, because I think this isn't just a transformation in a kind of evolutionary linear sense, it's a metamorphosis, it's a jump, it's caterpillar to butterfly.
Yes.
This is an evolutionary impulse. You can't stop the caterpillar turning into the butterfly. You can't stop the acorn turning into the oak tree. It's an evolutionary impulse. So
Yes.
if I look at three very big outer orbital bodies, Pluto, Haumea, and Sedna, they are in very, very tight geometry together, particularly for the next 2 years. So
Okay.
shall I just briefly talk about the symbolism of those?
Yeah, yeah, please do.
I'll try and make this try and make this brief. So
I know there's a lot here. It's deep stuff. Yeah.
there's so much happening in such a concentrated period of time. So Pluto is planet of death, transformation, and rebirth. It's linked
Okay.
to the myth of Persephone, who was kidnapped, taken down to Hades, all dark and horrible, comes up to the light. She's stronger, wiser. That's transformation.
Yes.
But
Yes.
that's slightly more of a kind of linear process. Then you have Homer, who has also just changed sign, actually. Homer is linked to the Hawaiian goddess of fertility. She's able to birth babies from all different parts of her body. She's an incredible regenerative energy. She can summon wild food from the land and the seas, even if it's laid waste. So again, she's a symbol of metamorphosis as well. So
Okay.
this is great stuff, by the way, about anti-aging and longevity.
Oh, wow.
Lots of new technologies coming, very welcome. But
Yeah.
the third orbital planet is Sedna. Now, Sedna has an 11,400-year orbit, has also just changed sign in May. So all of the, just ending, beginning, ending, beginning.
Wow.
The myth of Sedna is a pretty grisly one, because she was rescued by her father from a kind of abusive marriage, husband very abusive and didn't keep his promises. Father rescues her in a canoe. Big storm brews up. In order to save himself, father throws Sedna out of the canoe. She tries to hang on with her fingers. He chops her fingers off. So the male patriarchal energy does not come well out of this myth. She floats down to the bottom and is not just transformed, but goes through a complete metamorphosis into beautiful sea creatures of dolphins, whales, and turtles,
Wow.
which is stunning. And I think she's very linked to Lemurian energy, dolphin energy, that
Mhm.
whole ancient Lemuria turning into new Lemuria, shifts in land masses that we're going to see, that you have talked about as well.
Yes.
So those three orbital bodies, Pluto, Homer, and Sedna, are in very tight geometry, particularly for the next 2 years. So with all of these planets, ending, beginning, remarkable over these period, but particularly because solar cycle 25 is peaking over really the next 12 months.
Okay.
I think it is going to be within the next 12 months. That's what I bet. That's what I put my money on as an
Okay.
astrologer. And
Wow.
there is probability peaks
Okay.
that are coming down the track literally this year.
Wow.
Literally,
That
then
would
you're
be
in
the most like the best Christmas present ever. Like, oh my gosh. I was
you're
thinking it was going to be longer, like maybe end of 2026. You know what I mean? I was thinking it was going to take longer, but man, that would be amazing. Amazing, amazing. I mean,
your
I
information is really crucial.
the what is?
Your information and
Oh,
is really
thank
crucial,
you.
because I can't see that. And so it's so specific, it's so practical, it's so helpful.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That, I mean, that is why they pushed me to share it. But there is, I mean, like I said, the timing is really helpful to know. It's probably the most common question I get on my YouTube is when is it going to happen? I'm like, just go see Pam. go, go
A
watch
bit
her
of a
channel.
mouthful, but
But yeah, so and I think the thing I've been most enjoying most recently with the messages that have come through has been this very, very specific guiding us through. This is what you will feel when you're in the metamorphosis. This is what you're going to experience. And this is how it's been, and it's gorgeous. It's absolutely beautiful. But so, okay. So another question. So I have been wondering that another thing that the angels talked about is this earth rift. You mentioned the earth changes. And the earth rift, they said, I believe it'll be somewhere in the Indian Ocean. It's like it could be volcanic. It is something, they said it'll be something that is heard around the world when it happens. So it's unmistakable. I thought when Tonga happened, maybe that was it, but that wasn't big enough. This is bigger than Tonga. Tonga, you could hear halfway around the world. This is all the way around the world. And I think this is significantly connected to. I think that it may be that if it's in the ocean, that it puts so much water into the atmosphere or so much debris into the atmosphere. It may be connected. And so I have wondered: are these three events, the 3 days of darkness, the Earth rift, and the flash of light? I have wondered if the three are the same thing, if they're connected. Like, because I know there's a connection between, like a massive solar energies affect the Earth.
everything's connected.
Yeah,
Everything's
everything's connected.
connected. Yeah, so the Earth, as we know, is going through, its own metamorphosis, its own upgrade, and we live on the Earth. But yeah, spot on. And I've been feeling that very strongly. So I loved your messages about that. Not only because Uranus, the planet of earthquakes and Earth shifts, is in Taurus
Yes.
only until 2026, but mostly from now to the middle of next year again.
Yeah.
Um, and I strongly feel that the ancient land masses from ancient Lemuria will re-emerge. And I know one of those was in the Indian Ocean. I think
Yeah.
another was close to Australia and New Zealand. And my good friend Heather Ensworth, astrologer, was interviewing a lovely guy who carries on the Lemurian heritage called Keone. And he said all the ancient Lemurian landmasses are still there, but because humanity fell from love, we can no longer see them. And
Wow.
once we come back to love, we will easily be able to see them.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Wouldn't that be incredible? Yeah. Yeah.
And
Absolutely amazing.
they will have high frequency,
Wow. Well,
and
it's
they
so
will have new
interesting.
species.
Yeah, one of the one time I had a vision where the angels were showing me part of my own neighborhood, not my exact street, but down the street, down the way. And I saw, and I was asking, like, what will it look like after the shift? What will this look like? And they showed me that there was only a couple houses that were lit and the other houses were dark. And this was not at all what I expected. I was sort of like, well, what happened? Because the neighborhood looked the same. There wasn't like debris or chaos. It was like the lawns were still trimmed. And I'm like, where did everybody go? Why are these houses dark? And I thought maybe was there a plague or, you know what I mean? Except for the fact that the neighborhood looked the same. And so I had to channel on it later and they said, no, that the ones that were lit, those, it's almost like they were showing it from the angelic perspective. These are the ones that, and they described it as being in the light. These are the ones that the angels could see. It's almost like these are the ones who stepped into the new frequency. And it's not that the other people went somewhere. And it's like they're just in a different frequency. So it's like the frequencies separate. So you still have like all the people that are around you that, but if they're, you don't lose them, they're still there. They're just, it's like there's a divergence. Do you know what I mean? Like almost like mitosis, like two cells separating, but there's this period in between where we share the same earth. Yeah. Does
Yeah,
that make sense?
absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And that's my understanding as well. Dolores Cannon talked about this as well.
Yeah.
And, an analogy I often use is, you're in a haunted house, one person can see the ghost and the other can't.
Yeah.
Same space,
Yeah.
same
Yeah.
place, different frequency. So I absolutely think that's how it's going to be.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
And
I love the fact that it is available to everyone. Like that the angels have said that basically anybody who's here has their full lifetime to make the choice to shift. So I think that's why so many light workers are here is because after the shift, the people who step into it are going to be like super glowy. It's going to be like really obvious that you're happy and your life is working and there's going to be a lot of people who would say like, "Hey, I want what you've got. Like how do I get that?" And so there's going to be tons of people I think moving into wanting to heal, wanting to access their own, their own divinity. And that is, I think that's why that I think it's going to be more and more and more. The goal is to bring as many people with us as possible who want to, anyone who wants to, that they can find the help that they need because we're not meant to do it alone. But yeah, so
absolutely, yeah, 100%. I often say, it's almost like going to an airport and there's some people on fast track and some people on slow track to
yes.
get on the plane, but we all get on the plane at
That's
the end.
exactly right. Yeah. And there's no judgment because we all get there. We all get to the same place at the end. It's just people take a different journey. Yeah, totally. So you
Yeah.
think that's possible that this could all be one event, one like, that they could be linked.
Yes, yes, I absolutely do because everything's connected and because I honestly think while Uranus is in Taurus, because Taurus isn't just the Earth, it's our physical bodies as
Yeah.
well. It's the
Yeah.
Earth, it's our physical bodies. So Uranus is the quantum jump, it's the leap.
Yeah.
It's the spark, it isn't linear in any way. So
Wow.
because Uranus is only in Taurus until it's June next year, and then it goes into Gemini till November next year, comes back to Taurus for a couple of months, and then March 2026, fully into Gemini. So we haven't got long with
Wow.
Uranus in Taurus, which will another transformer for our physical body,
Yes.
another lift
Yes.
for our physical body. And so that's why I'm really feeling the next 12 months are going to be extraordinary. But, we don't all, as you say, Anne, have to move at once. We're going to be popping up into this new level of light, as it were. And that's what's so exciting. And I think I absolutely know that we are creating these higher timelines for humanity through love.
Yes. Yeah.
And that is changing our biology.
Oh
That
my
is
gosh.
actually changing our biology into the new human, which is much more based in the heart. And you've
Yes.
talked about this, much more
Hmm.
heart based. The heart is the portal to the cosmos. That's our biggest electromagnetic organ to the electromagnetic field. So
Yes.
this happening is very electromagnetic, but it's also love.
Yes. Yeah.
It's
And
also,
it is the same thing, right? It is like love is that, I mean, we are love. That's what we are. But yeah, and it's all energy. So it all comes back to the science and spirituality are really the same thing. Like,
absolutely.
yeah. Yeah.
And I
So
think we move out of the mind a lot and into the heart.
that
And
is, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the journey that we have to make is to get out of our desire. And it's to me, it's a shift away. Like through this process, we are shedding our karma and moving into a dharmic state, which I think is terrifying for us, where you know what I mean? Like where we're used to like when things are uncertain, what we do is we grab on tighter and we want to control more. You know, when things are scary, we wait and until we can figure out, like we go into our head, we try to problem solve with our head when what we're meant to do. And my life has been a training ground for this, where every 2 years, the angels were like, okay, that thing that you've been doing so that you like make your living with, you're going to stop doing that now. And we're not going to tell you what's next. Or you're going to move house every 2 years. And it's literally like my life gets upended every 2 years. And that's been forever. And it's about releasing and allowing, release. And I just have to trust. I'm like, okay, I'm going to stop doing this. And then I'll see what's next in 2 years. And I mean, it comes, but I have to go through the abyss, and they talk about that a lot. How do we move through the abyss in metamorphosis? So it's like I've been training for metamorphosis for my whole life, which is kind of crazy, but
and it will
but
feel like, the way they described it, it will be, I think, very much like being in the chrysalis. Absolutely.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Even to the point where we go through a period where we feel like it's like a brain fog, where we don't understand what's happening. And then definitely, if you did not see the last couple weeks messages, it's all about that and describing what's happening in the crystal. It's super cool. It's so exciting.
Yeah, they were
Like,
really clear, really
yeah.
super helpful. So any of you who haven't seen that, yeah, really
Yeah.
recommend you watch
But
Anne's video.
it to me, I'm just like, I cannot wait. But yeah, so one of the things that comes with all of this, angels talk a lot about flooding, and they ask people, one of the things they say consistently is please have a way to purify your water. And they also say not everything happens everywhere. So when people start to worry about, oh my gosh, there's going to be like earth rifts and all this stuff happening, and it's like, yeah, but not everything. The world is a very large place, and you may have one of these things happen where you are. Like so we have to understand, like even as people think about the chaos in the world right now, if they just come back to their four walls and look around them right now, yes, there are wars going on, but is there war in your living room? You know what I mean? Like the world is a large, large place, but they have talked a lot about flooding, and boy, have they been right. Like they started talking about this back in 2020, and flooding has been a massive, consistent story. But I believe there's major like tsunamis coming, and tsunamis that hit and I have thought they would be generated by the earth rift coming across, hitting Hawaii and then onto the west coast, but also the east coast somehow. So I don't even understand, like, and they then at one point they talked about it and they said it would be slushing like this. So any thoughts on
Yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah. Again, I don't know the specific geography, but for sure there will be major flooding.
Yeah.
Major flooding. Partly because Neptune, symbolism, Lord of the Sea,
Yeah.
it rules Pisces and is in the very last degree of Pisces right now.
Oh my gosh.
Last degree, so end of the old world, if you like.
Okay.
Not the whole world, but a world.
Okay.
But they're both very linked to the seas, the oceans, waters, flooding. The last degree of any sign is known as the anoretic or the crisis degree.
Okay.
So it brings up big issues about, yeah, flooding. And I think, if land is coming up in one place, it's going to come
Yes. Yeah.
flush the
It's
water into another. I mean, even down in the south of England here, through last winter, I have never had to check the tides before going out on the roads before. But
wow.
there's so much flooding. People were canoeing over the local bridges.
Oh
you know,
my
and,
gosh.
I know it's been extreme it's been extreme in South Africa and many,
Yeah.
many, many,
Brazil,
many,
like, yeah, crazy stuff happening.
a
Yeah.
lot of places in the US. So that is likely to continue until Neptune fully moves out of Pisces, which will be February 2026.
Okay. Well, February 2026 is like that is, you're right. I mean, like that is a big shift, a big time of change.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's like
big
everything's
episode
building.
shift. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
But
That
it's
is,
also, as well as the flooding, it's about the dissolution of the old world. It's
yeah.
about new point, because with the death of a old world is the cell, is the birthing cell of the new world.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, no, as we know. So, but purifying your water, quality of water. I mean, I'm doing quite a lot of work with Vade Austin. I'm interviewing her about her new book this week, in fact, and she calls water God consciousness,
Wow.
which is beautiful. And
Mhm.
I think we are really going to learn so much about water actually being our divinity.
Yeah.
So it
Hmm.
isn't just you turn on a tap and and we take it for granted. It's something it is. I think it's the creative impulse. Water.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
creative impulse.
No, I agree. It's incredibly important. It is it amazed me. I moved, not of course I move every 2 years, but I was guided to move to this place that I'm in now, which is nowhere I would normally live. Like I would have never chosen this place, but it just for whatever reason I just felt really it was like very, very guided. And I bought this place and it was a wreck and I had to fix it up. And that's I do that over and over and over and over again. Long story. But anyways, I thought about this idea about water and what is the water here? We were adding a sprinkler system and apparently we had a leak. The water company came and knocked on our door and we asked like what is up with like our water here is really good. Like we don't even taste the chlorine in the water. And they said, "Yeah, you have some of the best water in the entire state. You have your own neighborhood well, which produces it's not even filtered. It goes directly from the well to your home."
Oh,
And I
yeah.
was like, and then I was like, you know what I mean? It was one of those things like talk about the importance of water and being and I'm using that water to water all my vegetables. And do you know what I mean? I mean, it felt, I was like, oh my gosh, no wonder why they sent me to this crazy house that needed to be completely rebuilt is that you can't replace that. You know what I mean? So anyways, yeah,
Gift.
water for
That
sure.
is a gift, because we are liquid crystals. We
Yeah.
are what we drink as well as what
Yeah.
we think. But yeah, that was a real gift for you from the
Yeah,
angels.
absolutely, absolutely. And I only just found out about it like, about 6 months ago. So okay, so I want to ask you, we have another thing the angels have talked about as a theme is they've said when the US they said, US loses its hegemony, that falls apart. When we no longer have our eye on the ball, as we start to kind of get frayed at the edges, they said that China takes the opportunity and they start to try to take control over Taiwan. That they take on there's that ongoing conflict between Taiwan and China. They said that China steps forward, tries to take control of Taiwan. That Japan tries to rally the rest of the world against that happening. And so this then opens up a new segment of war, which they said this is then builds and builds and builds up to the peak, which is the giant flash of light, which by the way, they said the flash of light will be unmistakable. They said it will be the moment that in the future, everyone looks back on and say that is the moment that changed everything. So it's not a thing that anybody can miss. It'll be universally understood this was the flash of light, but that comes and that sort of settles the dust of the war, and that is the moment when everybody realizes that we need each other and we stop fighting and peace comes in. But what about that war scenario? What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think very much. I mean, I have a large plant instead of a television because I haven't watched for 4 years.
Nature
So
vision.
yeah, so but it definitely, a lot of war drums happening. Yes, China's chart is highly activated. This Mars-Uranus conjunction is right at the base of the chart, so we could see more seismic activity there. Pluto is moving over its ascendant, which will lead to attempted empowerment for China, more dominance. And, they're buying up a lot of land, as you know, in all kinds of places, including the US,
Yeah.
very strongly. So the drum on one timeline, particularly for anybody who's in fear and is watching the news,
Yes.
that will be louder than ever. That will be, oh my God, the world's in a terrible mess. That will be louder than ever. But eventually it will come to that point of, the solar flash. And then the two timelines will come together. So if you want to give yourself an easier time,
Yes. Yes.
stay out of fear. and stay on the love timeline where
Absolutely.
you're not even tuning into that. I
Yeah.
don't even tune into any of that, not because I don't care about the suffering, but because I care about the suffering, I'm spending all my time trying to create a better world. So,
Yes.
give yourself an easier time by bubble wrapping yourself to a large extent. Stay on the love timeline, on the
Yeah.
fast track to the plane the whole way through, and
Yeah.
then you won't have such a bumpy ride. But there will be at that lower level, yeah, absolutely, loud war drums, threats of World War III, all kinds of shouting.
Yeah.
And the thing is as well, and you know this better than I do, Anne, that there's going to be a lot of smoke and mirrors. What's true,
Hmm.
what's not. It's going to be,
Hmm.
it's going to be very hard to detect what's really true if you're not, on the ground seeing it for yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
So also use your discernment to say, is this really true, or is this just another really big scary thing coming up to
Right.
keep?
Yeah. And I love your distinction because I think that for a long, long time, I think we were taught that the way that we active or that we participate as active citizens and the way that we are is responsible is by being aware of the news. Like that was, that was sort of the story of
Absolutely,
for a
yeah.
long time. And I think now that we understand that everything is energy and that our thoughts create things, that it's important for us to be aware of what might come so that it doesn't startle us into fear. But the idea is to accept it as this is part of the transition, and that if we stay in love, as you say, then we will move through it with ease. And that is we're creating love around ourselves. And that is, I see that more and more as truth. And it's true, that you can go into the same exact circumstance, two people having the exact same reality, and one person experiences that as a beautiful day and the other one has a crummy day. And it's we are creating our experience. And so there are certainly certain truths in the world, like, yes, if this happens, there really is a reality around people. But there's a lot we can do in terms of shifting the planet by staying in the vibration of love. Yeah.
100%, and you do that beautifully with every video. You
Thank you.
really do, and it's like two people go on the roller coaster, and one
Yes.
is absolutely terrified, and the
Yeah.
other is having the best time of their lives.
Yeah.
And those two people actually produce different chemistry in their bodies.
Yes. Yeah.
Fascinating. One is, a very high cortisol through terror, and the other is just in bliss, thrilled,
Yes.
excited. So it's our reaction to what's happening. And I always say to people, try and stay in your eagle's perch, observe, know what's going on, but don't get too fully engaged. Because, like you, I mean, I initially, when I left university, I wanted to go into journalism, investigative journalism.
Yeah.
And I was kind of obsessed about current affairs up to about 4 years ago, when they started happy hour at 6 o'clock UK time, and I thought, what, I'm out of here. I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to create my own reality. So yeah, so we always have a choice, and that's what's great about your work, and I hope mine, that we help people to realize there is a choice.
Yes.
Step back, take a breath, step back. You don't have to impulse or trigger react into, oh, another really big scary thing. Take a breath.
Yes.
Is it really true? Is this for your highest good? Is it for everybody's highest good if you go into fear? Probably
Right.
not. Okay, take another breath. Can you step into love?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think that just to follow up at the sort of the last thought on that same topic is this idea of, I know moving into Aquarius is about, fellowship,
Yes.
and
Yes.
it's so much about, one of the things that Angel said is that like shipping would be calamitous is the word that they use. It would be a calamitous industry. That I think it is a push to start to find things locally, to start develop. And so what things can people do now in terms of moving into this new energy is to start to get your needs met locally. What is it, what are the people, who are the people around you? How can you build friendships with your neighbors? How can you find, what are the businesses around you? Who's producing what? Is there somebody that makes local honey? Is there someone that makes local eggs? Like, what can you get around you? And this is part of starting to learn to live in this new energy of, I think, of Aquarius, isn't it?
Absolutely, 100%, Dan. Absolutely spot on. Yeah, you're getting to know your neighbours. If you can join groups online of like mind, but even better if they're physical, in-person groups. I mean,
Yeah.
luckily, I'm in a strong group locally, a Stand in the Park group, that are all over the world.
Oh, I love that.
Free all over the world, and so they're like-minded people, and everybody in that group, everybody's different ages. We've got carpenters and builders and healers, and all of them, but all of us are doing something to create new earth.
I
Every
love
single
that.
one of us is doing something positive. We're not grizzly about the doom and gloom. We know all that stuff, so we're not going to do it to death. We're gonna create.
Yeah.
And so it's immensely supportive if you can find a physical group to hug, to laugh.
Yeah.
What have you been creating this week? That is so supportive, and they become your new family of frequency.
Yes.
Aquarian energy is all about local networks, local information, local networks. And within our group, there's a chap, kind of call him Jump Leads Bob, because he goes around some of the other groups around the geography and he brings back information. They know how to preserve food, they know how to pickle food,
Um,
all kinds of things, discovering where the natural springs are in the area,
yes.
for water, all kinds of ideas that feedback. It's a constant feedback loop because Aquarian energy is also to do with not only local networks but
Yeah.
information networks at the grassroots level, not top down, grassroots.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're spot on.
Okay, awesome. Oh, I love that. I mean, I just love it because it paints such a beautiful picture of where we're headed. You know what I mean? It's going to be, and that's part of the reason I like talking about this stuff is because if we know, like I said, not only does it keep us out of fear, but we also know it's not forever. The chaos period ends and we get to a much better state of being. And it's going to be amazing. Absolutely amazing. And I'm just going to be surrounded by people like you all the time. It's going to be awesome.
Oh, bless you. Well, I think the more we can hold that frequency, which you just beam out every week,
Thank you.
and the more that the more we can all, the more of us that can do that, the faster it's going to arrive.
Yeah. Hmm.
Things, we're interacting with our sun, with the planets, with the earth, with the magnetic fields. The faster, the more strongly we can hold that frequency of love, the
Yes.
faster all this good stuff is going to arrive.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Pam. I have loved this conversation. I was so looking forward to it, and it was even better than I thought. So thank you. I really appreciate your time. And yeah, and I look forward to talking to you again in the future. Thank you, Pam.
Yeah, I've loved it. You asked some great questions, and some great questions, and it helped me cover different ground to what I normally cover in the update. So, yeah, it's been fabulous. Yeah, real blast. So let's do it again. That'd be
Love it.
wonderful. Thank you
All right.
so much. Love
Thanks.
to everybody.
Yes. Bye-bye.